Welcome to Turning Point. I'm Becky Allfrey.
And I'm Jessica Allfrey. Life often comes on life's terms, but no matter what obstacle is set in our path, there are many things we can do to make our world happy again. Ben Stein, famous comedian, actor, and writer, shares his turning points.
Later in the show, plastic surgeon Dr. Echo shares his experience with helping people redefine themselves, and in some cases, even building self-esteem, because not all plastic surgery is cosmetic. So, Mr. Stein, how in the world did you go from speechwriter to comedian?
Well, I'm not a comedian, so I can answer that very quickly. I've never done stand-up. I've never done improv, once for about 5 minutes, but I've never done that. I'm just a sort of naturally funny person, and I talk about all different things, and I talk about them in a kind of humorous way. Even when I was a trial lawyer, I was pretty funny. Even when I was a trial lawyer, I would sometimes show up in court with Dracula teeth, fake Halloween Dracula teeth, and a cape. And
awesome.
Yeah, I was a wacky guy. And even now, when I'm on TV talking about the economy, which I am very, very frequently, I am quite funny, and we really, I think, make the audience crack up. It's usually Neil Cavuto and I doing it, and we make the audience crack up, I think. Got out of law school. Practiced law, hated it, and I mean hated it.
That's a good sign.
Hated it. It was tense, it was nerve-wracking, it was overwhelmingly detail-oriented, which I don't like. At the same time, while I had been at Yale studying law, I had also studied film. And I had a theory about the political content of film that was a fairly new theory that nobody else had really worked on. And I taught a class at American U in Washington, D.C. about the political content of film. It was wildly successful. Kids loved it, became a very large class. So anyway, I was offered a job at the Wall Street Journal writing about Hollywood and the political content of film. I took it, I moved to New York, did not like New York, but they were endlessly sending me out to Hollywood to do stories about Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And in those days, it was great living. They sent you first class, you had limos, it was great stuff. And I had a very good time in Hollywood. And I thought, oh my God, this is the way to live. I want to live like this. I want to be a screenwriter. So I met various producers, especially a very, very successful, very super unbelievably successful, mind-blowingly successful producer named Norman Lear, who did All the Family and many other shows, and probably the most successful producer there's ever been. Mm-hmm. And he asked me if I would care to be a consultant on a TV show he was doing about a love affair between a liberal woman columnist and a conservative White House speechwriter, and because he did not know any conservatives, so he didn't know what the conservative would say. So I took that job. It paid $600 a week for 1 hour's work.
What was the name of the show?
All's Fair. Starred Richard Crenna and Bernadette Peters.
Gotcha.
And I thought I was the most highly paid person in the world. I couldn't even think of what to do with $600 a week. It was so much. And
That's great.
I wrote for him. I wrote many screenplays. I wrote many novels. At one point, I was writing a column for the afternoon paper in LA, the Los Angeles Herald Examiner. I was writing 2 or 3 screenplays a year, 1 or 2 novels a year, 1 or 2 nonfiction a year.
Incredible.
I was working like a madman and just incredibly working all the time. Well, I had youth and energy and strength and ambition. And so I did that. And then at a certain point, when I was pitching screenplays to a very close friend at Universal, he said, "You're really, really, really funny. Let's put you in front of the camera in a movie." And the movie was called The Wildlife. And that was a sequel to a very successful youth comedy called Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Right. Okay.
But the movie I was in did not do much, even though it was quite funny, but it didn't do much. Then a few months after that, he said, "I'd like you to be just off camera in a movie called Ferris Bueller's Day Off."
You were wonderful in that.
Thank you. And so I just took the role off camera. Adams, Adamley, Adamowski,
did that very
Bueller. It was dynamite. The whole cast and crew loved it.
Adams. Here. Adamley.
Here.
Adamowski. Adamson.
Here.
Adler.
Here.
Anderson. Anderson.
Here.
Bueller. Bueller. Bueller.
John Hughes, the producer, director, and writer, had me ad-lib a speech about the economy. After that, I was a star. I mean, not a star like
So
Cary,
Ferris Bueller's
Cary
Day
Grant
Off did it.
or Rock Hudson, but a star.
That's great.
And yeah, it changed my life.
It
And
did.
so right after that, I became a regular on a show called The Wonder Years, which was a great TV show.
Yeah.
And started doing lots of commercials, and then some speeches, and still doing scripts and novels. Just working all the time, like writing.
And you're still working.
all the time.
I think that's
I wrote
awesome.
an essay this afternoon that I think is going to be made into a book called How Wall Street Works. But anyway, so that's how that happened, and I've been in I think about 25 or 30 movies, and then I had my own quiz show, Win Ben Stein's Money, which was invented by a very smart friend of mine named Al Burton, and it was really my money. If I lost, they would deduct it from my salary. And that played for a lot. As I said, 860 episodes. We won 7
That's
Emmys.
a
We won
lot
the
of
most
episodes.
Emmys that Comedy Central had ever had until The Daily Show came along.
There are a lot of women that after they've had children and they get a little older, they have some extra excess that in the tummy area, and they want to just feel perky and look younger. And tell us about the surgery that you do to help those women.
Well, what pregnancy does is it expands the abdominal wall. And sometimes it also disrupts the rectus muscles, which are the six-pack muscles everyone loves to have. And after pregnancy, some of the weight goes away, but some of it stays there. And so a tummy tuck can be done to improve the shape and appearance of the abdominal wall. What that involves is taking away the excess skin and fat that's accumulated from pregnancy and not gone away. But it also involves tightening the six-pack muscles, because what can happen is that the six-pack muscles move away from themselves, from the midline of the body.
Okay.
And so as part of it, a real tummy tuck is pulling those muscles back to where they're supposed to be, and that contributes to giving the abdomen a better shape and appearance.
And also the breast augmentation, that is just kind of an option, but as you age, sometimes breasts do, in fact, need lifting, or if the woman feels like she
Yes.
would like to do that.
Yes,
And-
there are multiple reasons to place implants in the breast. Everyone thinks about the person who wants their breast to be bigger, but there are people who are born with problems that cause one breast to develop and one breast not to develop, no breast to develop. There are multiple conditions that we use breast implants for. Sometimes it's because a woman has had babies and the breasts have become deflated. Sometimes it's because they've had cancer and part of the breast had to be removed. And so there are multiple reasons why you would use an implant. But yes, we do place implants in breasts as well.
Okay. So also, let's go on to body reconstruction. You also do lipo, and you also work on arms, and so these types of surgeries are also often connected with bariatrics surgeries.
That's correct. Patients who have undergone massive weight loss, by massive weight loss I mean anywhere between 80 to 200, 300 pound weight loss.
Wow.
What happens is when the person is bigger, as they get fatter, the skin has an ability to accommodate, and it expands and stretches. Well, when they lose weight, a lot of the fat goes away. However, the skin is left in a stretched and expanded state. And so these people tend to accumulate excessive amounts of hanging skin. And unfortunately, there's no other way to get rid of it but to cut it out. And so in these patients, there's often hanging skin of the abdomen, there's hanging skin of the arms, which can be as bad as looking like bat wings.
Sure. Oh my.
And there can be hanging skin of the thighs, as bad as hanging over the knees.
Wow.
And so all these areas usually need to be addressed.
And haven't they improved scar revision, I mean, aren't there products now that you're able to put on a scar and it fades much better than in the past? Isn't that another improvement?
Yes, that is an improvement. Some of these, well, as plastic surgeons, we try to hide our scars. We try to hide the incisions.
It'd be hard to hide a scar on an arm, I would think.
It's a little more difficult, and you know, in the plastic surgery community, we generally say the scars on the arms are the worst scars in the body.
I would think that.
Yes,
it just came to mind. Well, so if somebody wants to get in shape and it's not hopeless, you can have bariatric surgery, and you can have all of the skin removed and start working out in the gym.
That's correct. But one thing I would mention, though, is that most people think that it's an automatic progression after bariatric surgery, meaning not every insurance company covers the procedures that are required.
It doesn't. Wow.
For post-bariatric plastic surgery. And so it's important to look into that early on in the weight loss process.
But some insurance companies do cover that.
Some insurance companies cover some procedures.
Okay.
But a lot of insurance companies consider a lot of the procedures cosmetic procedures, and so they don't cover them.
That's a shame.
Yes, and so a lot of times patients have to pay out of pocket for some of the procedures.
Well, that's understandable, but if it's important to someone, they have an option, and they can also look into the different insurance companies too before they do a procedure.
That's correct.
Because there are some insurance companies that do cover it.
Yes,
That's
there are.
awesome. That's great.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Dr.
Thank
Echo.
you.
We're at World Gym with the award-winning champion trainer Eddie Foulger. He's going to be featured on Turning Point throughout the year.
Eddie grooms champions and first place winners, as well as people like you and me.
I train people who compete, couples who like to share their workouts together, from the very young all the way to the young at heart. I even train these two, so I can basically work with anyone.
Join us every Sunday night at 10 p.m. on Time Warner Cable Channel 14, FiOS Channel 21, and KRET MeTV.
Our next guest shares how his struggles with religion helped him find himself and a happier way of living.
Zach, could you tell the audience a little bit about your eating disorder and where it started from and why you overcame it and how you overcame it?
Sure, I'd be honored. My name is Zach, and I was raised in a beautiful town in Central California. My parents were devout Jehovah's Witnesses, and I later found out later in my life that they were addicts. I lost my mom a few years ago to alcoholism, among other addictions. And being raised in a heavy, strict religion with addicts left me really deficient as a kid. And the only way I really knew how to make myself happy young, I went through a lot of child abuse as well as the religion abuse. And it made me perceive reality through other people's eyes rather than my own.
Now, I've never heard the term religious abuse. So child abuse, of course, can be a wide variety of things, but can you share a little that you're comfortable with sharing?
Sure.
I don't understand. What is religious abuse?
Teaching a child or learning from people to how to perceive reality. And religions, which are strict like Jehovah's Witnesses, teach you to perceive reality through someone else's eyes. And it gave me a lot of beliefs and a lot of perfection issues and a lot of judgments. It made me extremely scared to grow, and it made me hyper judgmental on the world. And so what it did is it created a separateness with reality rather than a connectivity. And in that, I was always trying to approve or get approval from other people rather than being accepted, which is the opposite of what a religion should be teaching, which is, 100% acceptance. And so with that, I always felt like I was never good enough. I always felt like I was a sinner. And I really believed things before I had any cognitive ability to actually think for myself. And what happened is the older I got, the more disillusioned I got with reality and the more I was trying to get approval from other people, as well as still believing some of these things.
So your parents were devout,
Very.
and so instead of giving support to their child,
Right.
there was more criticism?
Very much so.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
so I always felt like I was never good enough.
enough.
Now, since my parents were addicts, they were always in trouble with the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Interesting.
Always in
Okay,
trouble.
because they're probably not supposed to drink.
No.
I don't really know the rules
Yeah.
of the Jehovah's
Yeah,
Witnesses.
they were hitting each other as well as hitting me all the time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And you know, my mom would wake me up at 2, 3 in the morning and put her hands on me, really bad. And the only way I knew how to feel comfortable was actually finding some sugar. And so I would start sneaking and waking up at 3, 4 in the morning before I even knew it, and I would find sugar to make myself feel better. What ended up happening as the years went by is with all the stress that I wasn't releasing, I wasn't knowing how to do, I started coming up with really bad stomach issues. And so my parents would always send me to the hospital, and we always were trying to figure out what was wrong with me. Nothing was wrong with me, but ultimately I was getting abused and no one was talking about it.
Oh, wow.
And I was eating a lot of bad food.
Is that when the weight started? Because you don't look like you've ever been overweight.
Yeah, I have, but that didn't actually happen until the 20s when it got really bad. What happened is I ate a lot of sugar, and I grew up and I had a lot of bacteria overgrowth in my stomach, and I got really sick. And then I became a personal trainer.
In your 20s?
Right, in my 20s. And from about 18 to 22, I was really bitter at my childhood and I didn't even know it yet. This is before I entered Compulsive Eating Anonymous. This is before I really started doing the work. And so I got a motorcycle. And from 18 to 22, I got in 4 motorcycle accidents. And so I just really hated myself, and I took it out on me, and I took it out on everyone around me. And I was volatile to anyone to be around me.
What happened that made you wake up and look at it differently?
Well, from 22, 23, I was an athlete because I still was trying to get this approval and acceptance. So I played football, I played basketball, and I was great in all that, but it didn't fulfill me. And I got injuries. And so I became a personal trainer, and after about 5 years of training, I was dibbling and dabbling in steroids and a lot of other things. And after 5 years, I was in a lot of pain and I wasn't feeling good, and I did not feel that it was right morally for me to have people invest in me when I wasn't doing the work. I met a wonderful lady who is my sponsor, and she said, come on into meet me at 9 a.m. Saturday here. And so I went in and I walked into my first Compulsive Eating Anonymous class, and within 5 minutes I knew I was home.
What made you choose bariatric surgery, Dr. Awad?
Well, during my training, I was exposed to a lot of different fields of surgery and met a lot of different surgeons. So a lot of our choices are experience dependent, and I had a great experience in the field of bariatric surgery. It's one of those fields where, one, you change people's lives, and in a positive way, and also in a cosmetic way, but also in a quality of life and a health way. These are really kind of life-changing surgeries, and what really kind of impressed upon me was the fact that everybody would come back and say, I feel like I have a new life, I feel younger, and their health problems get better, and they're able to spend time with their kids and take them to the park. So these surgeries really kind of give patients their lives back. The technology is great too. Everything's done through kind of minimally invasive techniques. We get to use little cool gadgets and robots and other different things that is nice, and really it's a field where it's very progressive.
And it's a safer surgery now, I understand.
It's very safe. So really the advent of minimally invasive techniques revolutionized the field of surgical weight loss. Heavy patients don't do well with open surgery. So now everything's done through tiny little incisions, little keyholes, little tiny 5 millimeter or little bigger incisions, which results in very little postoperative pain, less complications, and patients are in the hospital 1 to 2 days after these big surgeries.
Now, there are different types of the surgery for weight loss. Can you tell us what those are?
So there's quite a bit of options for patients now, but the main surgeries we do, one is the gastric bypass. And the gastric bypass, it's done through minimally invasive techniques, meaning laparoscopic approach. And that procedure really was established in the late 60s as an open procedure and kind of the mid-90s as a laparoscopic procedure. And that's our gold standard time-tested procedure. We do that. We also do, the gastric bypass is a procedure where you make the stomach small and you reroute the intestines in such a way that not all the food they eat is seen by the intestines. So you create a malabsorptive state. And that's a good procedure, and we see a lot of resolution of diabetes. It has a very profound effect on diabetic resolution. So patients do very well from a diabetic standpoint with a gastric bypass.
Interesting. So the food is just going through the body without absorbing it. Am I understanding that right?
It's being absorbed.
Okay.
But some of the intestines are excluded from seeing the food, so it's not being fully absorbed.
Now, do you focus on patients that you are referred from other doctors, like diabetes doctors, where their life is literally on the line and they're dependent on insulin and their lifestyle is really difficult?
Unfortunately, yes. You know, these should not be really kind of last resort types of surgeries, because we know that early intervention is very important, because a lot of these medical problems have cumulative effects, and if you intervene early, it's important. But a lot of times we get referrals from doctors who deal with patients who are poorly controlled diabetics, patients who have really bad hips, really bad back pain, cardiovascular disease. A lot of times patients come to us because they have a friend who lost a lot of weight. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of times the referrals through patients' testimonial as well as physician directed.
That's great. So we're going to be hearing some testimonials of your patients, and the lifestyle they choose after this surgery is crucial, I would assume.
It's very important. One of the things we do see every once in a while is patients regaining a little bit of weight. Uh-huh. And I'm a big believer that the surgery doesn't fail the patient. The patient sometimes fails the surgery. Mm-hmm. It's a full-time job. You know, you really have to work on maintaining the weight, then keep it off. So you have to make good dietary decisions, and you have to really implement physical activity in your lives.
Do you direct them in any way or encourage them to join a gym? Is that part of what you do in your office?
Yes, and our program here, what we realize is you can have the best surgery, but if you let the patient go and say, you know, see ya in a year, there's no accountability. Having accountability is very important, and having a program that has a lot of different aspects, like a personal trainer, dietitian support group, seminars, exercise classes, where they develop personal connections with other patients, and it's almost like a healthy competition where they work with each other and encourage one another. So the aftercare is very important, and I think
you have an aftercare program here.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's wonderful. So how much do you stay in touch with your patients after the surgery? How often do they come in?
Well, I tell them they're my patients for life.
I like
most
that.
of them like that.
Wow, yes.
But most of the patients are my patients for life. We follow them for risk of nutritional deficiencies, because these surgeries sometimes can put them at risk for nutritional deficiencies if they're not compliant with the supplementations we recommend. Mm-hmm. Also, the fact that they come see me and they know they don't want to disappoint their surgeon, so they really kind of make good dietary decisions and try to implement a good aftercare program. But we see them usually for the first year every 3 months, and then every 6 months thereafter.
Our childhood memories sometimes grow fainter as we get older, but when one memory, one person, sticks out in your mind like it's yesterday, sometimes it changes your entire outlook and motivation for life, and even becomes your passion.
My background, of course, is in education. I've chosen special education as my option for my 42-year career, and the things that, or the path that led me to choose working with special need kids was a result of a little boy that I grew up with in our neighborhood who lived 4 doors down. His name was Bobby. He was obvious special needs child, very cognitively impaired, sweet kid, but there were no school options for him, because at that point we had only general ed classrooms, and you know, Bobby was functioning at the developmental level of a 2 or 3 year old, and so after preschool, there was really nothing. He was not gaining anything from education. Then in 1972, Congress finally enacted legislation which established special education programs in the public schools. And that is when I started my college career. And so I attended a small Catholic liberal arts college that was introducing its special education program when I was a freshman there. So I was able to follow the sequence of the 4 years and end up being able to be credentialed as a special education teacher working with special needs children, which I did for 20 years. And then I got lured to the dark side, as they say, and ended up in administration. But I still it was not at the level where I was stuck in an office 8 hours a day. My title was that of program specialist, so I supervised the special education classrooms in 10 of the district schools. So I had contact with preschool kids all the way up to high school kids. We had some continuation high schools for students that were not successful in our comprehensive high schools, which were awesome kids. And you know, a lot of people sort of gave up on them, but you could see the potential, and they just needed, you know, someone to respect them and to listen to them. And that was all part of our training, so it worked out very well. And so I had a fabulous 42-year career working with special needs children that I cherish to this day, which was a natural stepping stone then to begin volunteering at Desert Regional Medical Center as a volunteer. I work primarily at the front desk because they tell me that's where I'm best suited, because they like the way I smile. So, and I enjoy that it's busy. We sign in almost 1,000 visitors a day, just between 8 and 4, and so it's fast-paced. The time goes by quickly, and I get to meet all kinds of interesting people. So, it's been nice. It's been very nice. I love my occupation. I have friends who hate to get up in the morning and go to work because they have a job they hate. In 42 years, I could never say that. I look forward to going to work. So, and my days were long. I averaged 10 to 12 hours per day, and but I wouldn't have traded it for anything else. It was the dream career. So, and now I have a dream volunteer job. So, it's good. Life has been very good to me. I'm a volunteer at Desert Regional Medical Center in Palm Springs. I began to volunteer after retiring from a career in education as a result of a relationship that I developed with my bariatric surgeon, Dr. Ramy Awad, who had a huge influence and a big change in my life. I started out at 467 pounds, had the bariatric surgery, and subsequently lost 250 pounds, and it changed my life. I mean, it had reached the point where my primary care physician had told me that if I didn't do something, that within a year I would probably be dead. So that was my inspiration to seek out Dr. Awad, who was a wonderful individual, very easy to talk to, sort of walked me through the entire process, did the surgery, the follow-up, and the weight just sort of melted off.
Thank you for watching today's show. If you have a turning point you'd like to share, please call the number at the bottom of the screen.
In reality, every month is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. A scientific study recently found that squeezing breasts may prevent cancer. Apparently, mechanical forces and applying physical pressure to the breasts can stop the rapid growth of cancer and prevent out-of-control cells from turning malignant.
So grab your partner and save the tatas. See you next week.